Talking heads. Okay, so we're going to start our I was called it a student panel, but I guess in this case it's an adult panel. But really, this is going to be a continuation of a discussion that hopefully you already started in your work groups. So these brave souls have been kind enough to come and sit in front of you and answer all of our questions. I'm going to start off and ask them some gentle questions. And then we're going to leave it up to you guys to ask the real hard-hitting questions, the ones that make them squirm in their seat. I'm just kidding. So let me go ahead and introduce you to our esteemed panelists. Over here we have Chris Hackbush. He is the principal of Reno High School. Some of you. Reno! Next, we have Mark Zimmerman, who is the assistant principal at Reed High School. Then we have Denise Hausauer, principal of DeMonte Ranch High School. And then, last but not least, we have Tierney Cahill, who is a part of Innovations High School. Okay, so I do encourage you that as you listen to these folks talk and give their ideas, that if questions emerge, keep those in your mind, and we will ask those questions as well. So how I'm going to do this, I'm going to throw out a question, and if one of you has something to say, I will hand you the microphone, okay? So what, if anything, did you hear in the student discussions today that surprised you?
Well, the group that I was with, we were talking about the demographic discrepancies in the data, and one of the students said, I'm really surprised at the reaction of the other folks in the room that nobody was really surprised. So that was kind of a shocker for them, that it wasn't, I think we were talking about the data on the boys having more discipline infractions. And the boys were like, yeah, you know, that's right, you know, instead of being like, really, you know, and getting upset about it. So that was a discussion.
Was there anything that surprised you? Maybe that's another way of asking the question.
I think our group said very much the same to you, but the other thing that we noticed as we were talking, the discrepancy in more suspensions for boys than the gray line, but girls were less suspensions than the gray line. So it even made that disparity greater than what it should have been based on statistical data. The other thing we talked about was, and just today, as we're sitting here, it dawned on me personally, you all don't have much of a voice. And we need, as administrators, to give you a much greater voice in school, because you all are quite smart. You would solve the problems that we don't solve, because just ignorance is a terrible place to be, and I think we keep our students in the dark from some of the data that you all got to see today. And I think it would be great if all of our students could see that so they could decide what they want to do with that. And I think as a team, we would make that data look very different, and it would be much better. So for me, hearing your voices today, I loved it, and I look forward to doing that a lot more.
So, so that sort of leads us into another question. Is, you just mentioned that you think that that these students and more of our students need to have a stronger voice. Can you give me some examples of what either your schools are doing or what schools maybe you visited are doing in terms of engaging students and getting that partnership going? Yeah, Mark.
Well, in our small group, when we were action planning at the end, one of the ideas we came up with was, rather than have a professional development with trickle down the administration teaching the teachers and then delivering that to the students, is having a professional development where the students led the professional development with the teachers and to show the impactfulness of, for example, we talked about Kindness Week and developing respect. I think if the students led that with the teachers to show them the kinds of things and the kind of benefits they can get out of that activity, it'd be a whole lot better than an admin telling the teachers what to do every day.
I see you guys nodding your heads. Did that sound like a good idea?
So Innovations, we actually just did that. We just had a professional development day. We had 2 facilitators from Eagle Rock in Estes Park come out and kind of guide us through the process of student engagement and what is it that gets kids excited, what is it that allows them to go deeper in their learning and to have deep and meaningful relationships with their advisors. Our teachers are called advisors. And their voice was 100% of what was driving that PD. The students presented in each group and then whole school, and those things are still up in our lunchroom as far as what is it that makes someone come to school and what is it that drives those connections. And so student voice at our school, I feel like, is very, very powerful. Many of our courses are driven by student voice. And students come to us and say, you know, we want a poetry slam class, we want a social justice class, we want a calculus class, whatever it is, we have an all-girls STEM class. If they want it, we will do everything we can to make it happen. And so student voice is truly the driving force at our school.
Did you hear any ideas from the students today, or come away with any ideas about how you can grow, maybe not just student voice, but that involvement around decision making that occurs in schools, around school improvement? Any fleeting ideas that came to you or that was shared to you from the school? I hope not fleeting. I hope not fleeting.
I don't think this is fleeting. I really want Tierney to talk about it because we talked about the circles, that the restorative circles that they do, and I'm really looking forward to stealing that idea. So Tierney, do you mind?
You want me to speak to that?
Yes. Okay. So in many circles around the country, Oakland, many inner city areas, there's something called restorative justice. We have gotten rid of the term justice because we think there's kind of a negative connotation that goes with that insinuates maybe the legal system. So we call it restorative practices. But we work very hard to help students in groups of students, a collaboration, problem solve for when maybe their peers are making bad decisions or poor choices, right? And it's not punitive, it's really healing about how do we heal the harm that has happened to our community, and how do we move forward from here as a community in healing this process and keeping this person as part of our community that's a valuable member, not excluding them and making them an outsider through things like suspension. So we all make mistakes. Every one of us up here has made mistakes growing up. And I think with a positive presupposition and intent that we believe that all people want to be accepted and cared about and part of something that matters in a community, with that belief in every student and that they truly matter, it really has made a difference in our discipline at our school. I don't even like that word, discipline. I just think that we help solve problems and help people to progress as humans.
So I spent 8 years at a different high school doing discipline. And then when I transferred to Reno High School, we had detention and suspensions in-house. But over the time that I've been there, the 6 years I've been at Reno High School, right now we don't have any detention, work group. I mean, we will in-house kids, and it's kind of more of a negotiation, like problem-solving discussion, depending on what's going on with the kid. We really try not to suspend kids because we understand that they're going to be at home, watching Dr. Phil and Captain Crunch, right? So That doesn't really solve anything. Plus, we're trying to get more folks to come to school. So we're really reluctant on that, and so it's kind of along the same lines of what you guys were talking about. But I think we got to relook at the whole discipline of our district and really consider that, because really, you send a kid out of school and you guys saw the data. If you get one suspension, you know what that does to your mindset and your graduation rates and everything like that.
If I could just add one more thing.
Yeah.
Please.
I think part of the valuable part of restorative practices is that student voice in that is much more powerful than the administrators. We try to really not talk if we have to, and really allow students to offer suggestions and kind of peer advice to their peers. And that's much more meaningful than me saying you have to spend lunch with me, right? Is that, hey, you disrupted our class. That was really unfortunate because we didn't get to do this, or whatever the case may be. I mean, they feel much more accountable to their peers. And I think that is extremely valuable. And we're also really aware of the prison, the school to prison pipeline, and that the more we suspend kids, the chances of them not graduating exponentially increase. And so we have to find another way. That's not working for our kids.
Thank you. Do any of you at this point have any questions for our panelists? Yeah. Could you say your name, please?
My name's Austin Owen. I go to Reed High School. So a question that came up today was about school safety, and because there's like this whole safety survey, and then the numbers that came up were surprisingly staggering of like how much kids don't necessarily feel safe and they don't like feel respected, whether it be by students or adults. So what are some things that you're going to try and do to remedy that in the future, or like what are your ideas to remedy that from what you've heard today?
Safety. Mark's got the answer.
Well, Austin. One of the things that I'd like to do is I'd like to sit down with students and find out what is it that's making you feel unsafe. Because my perception of what I think is safe for you and doing everything that I can to keep you safe at school is probably different than what your perception of feeling safe at school is. And get some ideas from you about what we can do to change to make you feel better at school.
I think that one of the opportunities that have surfaced for all high schools is when the legislature said, I want all schools to have a flex time for students. And what you do in that flex time is pretty much up to each of the schools. And I know at DeMonte, we have an instructional center, which students can make decisions on where they go under their own power. They decide which teacher they're going to sit with. They decide who they're going to work with as far as students. It's much more than a study hall. But our freshman students do not have this class. They have something called freshman seminar. It's not identical to any other schools. They're all independent. And one of the things they do is have large class discussions around it and small group discussions around any of the topics. But sometimes it's technology, sometimes it's safety, sometimes it's grades, it's taking AP classes, it's what you do when you're in high schools. And so the most important piece of that for me has been when teachers come afterwards and bring me the notes, because that wasn't what was supposed to happen. They didn't say, we're going to write notes for Mrs. Hausauer. No. But they said, can you give these to Mrs. Hausauer, please? So I got to get those, and then I have a meeting with my team once a week, and I get to put the notes on the table. Look what these kids were saying. What are we doing about this? And so now I have a focused conversation around an agenda item that my freshman class gave me from freshman seminar. We have a senior seminar also, and I don't get nearly as many notes from senior seminar because they're really worried about scholarships, more so than some of the things at school, but I get a couple of agenda items from there. And then the third thing that has been very helpful is we have an ice cream with the principal. And there's 2 students from every class that sit with me at lunchtime. They give up their lunch, and they bring any issues they want. They can come and say, I love this, do this again. Or they come and say, I hate this, get rid of it. But they have an opportunity just to tell, and I tell them, I don't know if I'm going to fix anything, but I know I'm going to listen to you. And then maybe together we can decide what we do to fix it. So those are some things that we've started to do at Devani, and I think other schools are following that same path. Again, I just think it's not enough because it's just a little bit of voice coming through, and I think there needs to be more. So I think we're going to do some of the things that I'm hearing from this school for sure. As I call them, and Tierney knows I'm going to be calling her to say, how do you do that? And we'll be able to do some of it. But I hope you guys go back to your principals and say, you know, they talked about this cool thing. Can you call so-and-so and maybe she can tell you, maybe we can do it. Or you can say, can I help do this? Can I start a club? Can I start a group? And maybe there's a club that says student voice. So I'm hoping that we can start something like that where I'm at, so.
Just to address your question, I think it's going to be authentic, like from the administration, in terms of like that you guys should feel like we care about what you're saying and that we care about you as a person. I think what I find is if we, as a principal myself, if I have high expectations for like your behavior or how you guys treat each other within the building, how the teachers treat you, how the teachers treat each other, and you as the principal kind of walk that walk as well. I think that helps, I think, the culture of the school. And I think you can't talk about it enough. So whether it's in an assembly or if it's, you know, in a classroom or if it's just being visible in the hallways and smiling, I think you got to definitely walk the walk to help that culture where people do feel safe. Like I tell the freshmen, I just had the freshmen for the incoming Frosh Day, and they rotate through 8 different stations basically on that day. We bus them all in, and I talk to them in our alumni museum, and I spend, you know, about 30 minutes with each group, and I'm just pounding home the fact that we are here to help you. We want you to be successful. We're going to push you like you've never been pushed before, but our expectations are up here. And then, you know, I mean, you guys can speak to this, but I would think you'd want us to treat you like adults. So, you know, you have freedom, like at Marine High School, you have freedom to go across the street and eat lunch. We expect you to behave over there. And, you know, and if that's not happening, then we have individual conversations with those small few, opposed to like initiating huge school-wide sweeping policies. And I think the student body sometimes appreciates that a little bit more. I don't know, you guys could tell me, but anyway.
Can I ask you all a favor and just stand up really quickly and just maybe let's just stretch for 1 second. You can shake your neighbor's hand, you can shake yourself.
Oh, that's even better.
Then turn around, say thank you for being you. Oh. Feel good. All right, then the legs. Okay, and sit back down. I think maybe I did that because I needed it more than anybody else. I'm more understanding. I want to ask a question of the whole group, not just our panelists, but I'm interested, especially from you guys, in thinking about trying to envision how would schools be different if students were more intimately involved in some of the decision making that occurs in those schools. Because it sounds like we're all thinking that that would be a good thing, but I want to know why. How would schools be different?
Yeah. Oop, got a couple people.
I'm Alexis Girl and I go to Reed High School, so I think that student and administration involvement is really important. And I feel like it's important to kind of talk to students from different kind of groups or cliques or just different backgrounds so we get like a vast majority of what would work to make school better for them. As well as our assistant, vice principal assistant, I'm sorry. He was telling me how it's hard to really connect to the students because when he was in school, it's a totally different time, and he can't remember that far back. Those were his words.
Okay.
And
Choose your words carefully.
and so I feel like I feel like the conversation between students and administration should kind of focus on different, like I said before, different groups and ethnicities and cultures, as well as the administration are listening to what's happening just on a regular day-to-day basis.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think for this event, we need more representation from the schools in future years, right? We started with the leaders, but it needs to be all of our voices, right? Okay, here you go.
Hi, I'm Mitchell Cornell from Incline High School, and I think the school system itself is not necessarily set up super well for the interaction between students and administration. Like the interaction can occur, but the potential for impact by the students is not like something super likely. Because when I think about this and I think about how students can have an impact or an influence, I just kind of think like yeah, that's kind of like the ideas can be out there, but I'm not sure how much the system that we have right now can change. Like, it just has to be, like, I like how the innovation tool, yeah, like I think that has potential for a greater interactions between students. And it just, the way the school system has developed over the past 50 years has led to this kind of problem we're dealing with now.
Thank you. Here you go.
I'm Mackenzie Hans from the Modern Ranch High School. I think that seeing what happened here today, it was just really cool to see kind of everyone from different schools and different backgrounds come together and talk about a certain topic. And it seemed like generally when we talked about a specific issue for a while, there would be debates back and forth, but we'd all kind of come to a general consensus about either a solution or a common cause. And so I think it would be really helpful if we had some sort of panel like this for each school that maybe, I don't know how often, maybe once a month or whatever, came together and did something like this, where we just would present issues and we can talk it out and debate until we come to a common solution and then talk it out with administration.
That's a fantastic idea. So let me make sure I heard you correctly. You're thinking of having having information that is specific to your school, and then you having those deep conversations with your administration? Or would you first have the conversation that you did with other students, and then, or does it matter so much?
Either or.
Either or.
If you think either way, whether the administration was there for the conversation and seeing how it got there would be helpful, but I know that administration has a lot on their plate. Mm-hmm. So if students just got together until they had a solution and then presented it.
Mm-hmm. And I also heard from the gentleman back here, I think one of the things you were saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the system, it sounds like you're thinking or feeling that the system is set up to where you're not necessarily sure that the changes you suggest are able to occur. So, so we would need to work some solutions around that, right? It would have to be realistic in what could be done with our recommendations. Do you guys have any questions for our audience?
I think the hardest part for me as we're talking is
Really figuring out how to trust one another so we can really talk. And so if we were to do something at DeMonte, we would have to figure out a way to make everyone feel comfortable so that they can use their voice. I think that's hard. When we first started in our first group, everybody was very, very quiet. If we ended up doing this over a week, I think that it would be hard to find enough air in the room because everybody would want to talk. So really building that trust. And so if you were to do it at your own school, which I think is absolutely possible, there's nothing stopping us from doing it today, right? That we would really have to figure out a way to be able to say the things that are true and real and be able to then move forward with those. So I appreciate that very much.
I'm just going to add to what Ms. Hausauer. I just think along those same lines that it's really important that if we ask for student voice, that we actually have the open ourselves up and avail ourselves to acting on student voice and not just listening to what they say, but acting on it and being, not being defensive about it and not being, as the adult acting like, well, I really know what I'm going to do because honestly, we had an experience last year at Incline where the teachers were working to do the discipline, their progressive discipline plan. And the teachers were all sitting at a table and I said, do you guys have any kids in here? Because this is really about them. And it really had occurred to them that we should be asking some students to join in. And when we did, we got some really valuable information from them. And the adults sort of let me talk about looking dumb. We sort of look at each other like, really? But I think we have to open ourselves up as adults to really to listen to our students and then act on it.
So I think that the main issue comes down to the student admin and student teacher relationship because in general, I think teachers think they have the final say, they are the adults, and I don't think it's that kids are afraid to share their voice, and because everyone has an opinion, everyone wants to get the change that they want to see, but I think the problem is that kids think that the teachers aren't going to listen, and the teachers are going to do what they want to do, and it's what she said, it's the action, and if the teachers show the action, that's where kids will feel that they're allowed to share what they want to see.
I think a key part in trying to get our voice out is there needs to be an atmosphere where we're not afraid to challenge what the adults think. Because even if you may agree with what they have to say, I feel like if you can challenge it, it's better for both of you because it makes you both think about both sides of it. So if you can challenge an idea, even if you're for it, I think it helps the overall cause. And I feel like with a lot of student voice stuff, kids are afraid to challenge what the adults say because of just the cultural who the adults are higher. I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you both of you for sharing that. Should have worn my Fitbit today.
So I think that the key to what they were saying was to kind of build the confidence of students' voices, and I think that the students should have a better voice or a bigger voice in this system because we're the ones who are being really affected by it. We're the ones who are getting the education.
So, how might students have a bigger voice?
I think it's just kind of getting a better confidence in it. I don't really have a solution to it, but that's kind of the problem.
Okay. Let me go over here and then I'll kind of. You don't. Okay.
So, with student voice, it's all about making your presence known. You will get the student voice time that you need if you talk to the right people. You may not always know who the right people are at first, but if there's an issue I need addressing, I'll usually start at Joan, who works at the front desk. She'll tell me which admin's in, and I'll go from there. And if I can't get a hold of one of the admin, I'll go to my counselor, and that way it's on the agenda for some time, and then I can openly discuss it. It's all about constantly fighting to get your voice heard, because adults do forget what it was like to be a high school student. And they do need to be grounded back into, like, I was 17 too, working, you know, I had a girlfriend or this or that, you know. Teachers get away from it. And so that's where student voice comes in, to like, hey, you know, you were here too, show some compassion to them, you know.
So what you're saying is that students have to take ownership, and you guys have a responsibility as well to put your voice out there.
Yes.
I have another comment over here, and then we'll back around.
Hi guys, I'm Sandy. I'm from North Valleys, and my for student voice, I know some of us feel intimidated to bring it to the administrators. And a thing that North Valleys we're considering of doing is having students talk in an environment where there's no adult present, so they don't feel the pressure from the adult in the room. So then we have a student in the room that can bring these ideas to the administrator later. So we actually get the true idea from the students where they don't feel pressured by the adults to say what's on their mind. So then we can have a student bring that to the administrators later.
Terrific. And this will be our last comment, and then we're going to wrap things up. So Katie?
Hi, I'm Katie from WCSD High School, and I think that students don't only feel pressured by the adults that work in the school building, but they also feel pressured by their peers to give their student voice. Like, for example, say that I have a problem with like how a teacher is teaching something, and so if I tell one of my friends like, oh, I think that we should tell the teacher like why they're doing something wrong, and they might just be like, why would you do that? They're not going to do anything about it. Why does it even matter? And so students might be scared that if they bring up an issue in class that that other students aren't going to think that that was a good choice for them to do.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Oh,
is it okay?
sure, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Of course. There you go. We'll fit it in just this one time.
Okay, so I'm Brian Stacey. I go to Reed High School, and I'm pretty sure everyone here is in agreement that student voice is really important to, in all aspects. So I just want to get a sense of how important this day is for all the principals and vice principals. So can you guys tell me something specific that you heard from a student today that that you didn't know before, and that you can take back to your school and change something?
I was amazed that, and I know this, I know that the students haven't really seen the data that we showed you today necessarily, and I just think that's a big part of what's going on when we get our data books back and our performance framework books with all our stars in there. I think it's important to sit down with you guys and show you what's going on at our schools so you can have a voice in trying to improve things. Because we're always brainstorming, trying to think of things that are going to make us better. But without using your voice, I think it's a shame if we don't use you.
This has nothing to do with the data, but in my group at the very end, we were talking about what teachers are telling students. And I looked at them and I said, why did I tell you that? That's not true. They said, when we get a referral, it goes in our file and it follows us forever. And I went, what in the world? And all of them shook their head yes, and I went, that is so not true. So what I'm going to go back and do, what my absolute action step is going to be, is to sit with my staff and say, folks, be real, be honest, and don't lie to our kids. Because I think we're lying. I don't think we're purposefully lying. I think we're trying, maybe it's a fear tactic so that you don't behave incorrectly. You know, when we say, I'm teaching you responsibility, nowhere on the Common Core does it say, teach that child responsibility. It says teach the content that you're required to. So if I'm failing a child for not being responsible, then you're not being ethical as a teacher. That's what I'm going back to say to my teachers. Be honest with these people right here can hear our voice too. But we have to be honest, and we have to tell them the right information. And I was shocked when I heard that today. I thought, uh-oh, I'm sure that probably is happening at my school too. I gotta make sure it's not happening. So that's my absolute action step.
I think I have.
Leah? Miss Leah over here would like to say something.
Well, and I'd like to say thanks to Logan. He's my student, and he's just, well, he's our student at the Mr. Colt family, and we love him. He did a great job putting this together today, by the way. When I sat in our group, wow, just hearing all of you talk about the data, it was really cool. I just enjoyed seeing all of you reason with each other and coming to the same conclusions that we all do as adults in our building. So you're quite astute in your analysis. You don't need a college degree. You all know what's happening and why, and I think that's cool. My biggest takeaway today was, first off, obviously when we do suspend kids, and we do have to at times, because we have 1,800 students we have to care about, and we have to make a decision on one to ensure that 1,800 are also safe. So we have this huge job to be safe for all students. But I'm going to talk to my students and my staff about our allocations to see maybe bringing back in-house suspension, because when we lose our allocations, sometimes it's hard to, so we end up suspending kids, or they hang out in our discipline office and cause havoc all day long and no education's going on, So that's one takeaway I will do. My question to you is I do cookies and milk, and I bring in random kids, and I kind of script what they're saying, I ask them questions. As students, I've always wanted to send those emails out to teachers to say, here's what the kids are saying, because they're saying some really cool stuff and really honest stuff about teaching practices. But I can tell you that some of my teaching colleagues would have a fit with their contract if I shot that out to them and said, hey, here's what kids are saying, because we know which teachers are struggling, we know which teachers are abusing their power, not abusing their power, horribly. So what do you think? How do I send out, after I script a bunch of information from students that give me information about teachers, what would your suggestion be? And should I?
Should she?
I don't need a microphone. Honestly, I wouldn't write out an email. I'd do it face-to-face with the teacher, because face-to-face is more personal.
Well, I do face-to-face, like in actual, that kind of stuff. I'm talking about an actual sort of, here's what the kids said today.
Sit them all down. Because face-to-face is the most accurate way of doing things, because it shows more emotion, it shows how you feel towards the subject. So it'll give the teachers like more of a feeling of what you're talking about.
Okay, so with that, we're going to have to close the day, but I just want to take just 1 second, first of all, to thank our panelists. I would like for all of our facilitators to please stand up. Our adult facilitators too. Thank you, and take a bow. Yeah. You guys are all so smart and awesome. And I want to thank the student advisory board members and my coworkers in accountability. You guys are incredible, you're amazing, and I want to just, I want to thank Laura Davidson. Okay, and so with that, if you were a facilitator, if you were part of the planning, just hang back for a couple of minutes, and the rest of you, thank you so much, and I hope that this sparks more conversations, and that this is just the start of something really special, all right? Thank you, everyone.